Welcome to Conversations on the Coast, San Francisco's premier author interview program. And today is one of those days when the interview is put to work right at the start because we have a very long title. The title today is The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society. It's a novel. It's written by Mary Ann Shaffer and Annie Barrows. And Annie is here. The book is published by the Dial Press. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Jim.
Now, it was hard for me to decide where to begin this interview because there's so much to get to. But I'm going to start with the news. And the news is all good. All good. This book is number 1 on the San Francisco Chronicle bestseller list, number 3 on the New York Times Book Review bestseller list, number 6 on the Publishers Weekly bestseller list, and it's number 1 in New Zealand. There are 200,000 copies in print in this country alone, and we have a problem with Tasmania. Tasmania has not bought this thing.
But they're going to be coming in, I'm sure.
We're shouting out today to Tasmania.
Come on, you Tasmanians.
This goes on the web and can be heard loud and clear in Tasmania. Whoa. Back in July, the Wall Street Journal said that this title may become one of the surprise hits of the summer season. Well, it sure has. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. There are a couple of other surprises about this book, I think. Actually, you are just or only, or you are a co-author of this book. The other author is Ann Shaffer. Tell us about your co-author.
My co-author was my aunt. Long before she was my co-author, and the book was hers long before it was mine. Mary Ann had written this book fairly late in life, and after it got sold, there were a substantial number of revisions that the editor wanted, and Mary Ann, her health began to fail right at that time, and she asked me to come in and help her do it.
This is an absolutely horrible and tragic thing to happen because if one looks at her literary biography, if you will, it was her dream to finish a novel and to see it published. She was in the book business. She started several novels while raising 2 children with her husband and Marin. She worked variously at the Larkspur and San Anselmo public libraries. And in San Francisco, she was an editor at Harper & Row and a bookseller at Clean Well Lighted Place for Books in Larkspur and at Book Passage in Corte Madera. So she was on the scene, as it were, and always, I guess, like many people who are on that scene, feeling, I should write a book, I should write a book. Now, there's a story that it was the people in the San Anselmo library that pushed her over the edge, so to speak.
Well, everybody who met Mary Ann wanted her to write a book. She wanted to write a book, and we all wanted her to write a book because she was such a great storyteller. And so for my entire life, I heard people trying to get Mary Ann to write a book. The San Anselmo Library connection it wasn't the staff of the San Anselmo Library. It was a group of friends who worked there as volunteers, the head librarian there, Sarah Loyster, who's still the head librarian there, and my mother, Mary Ann's only sister, got together and formed a writing group. And one of the main reasons was to try and get Mary Ann to write a book. They figured if everybody turned something in, Mary Ann would have to turn something in. And so that was the beginning. They all took turns, and by gum, she came up with the first chapters of Guernsey.
Mary Ann didn't stand a chance at this point.
She didn't. There was a big group of people pushing her on and wanting it to happen. But I also think this story was the story that she always wanted to write.
And there's also something beautiful at the very end of the book where she talks about your coming on board. I must tender special thanks, she writes, to my niece Annie, who stepped in to finish this book after unexpected health issues interrupted my ability to work shortly after the manuscript was sold. Without blinking an eye, she put down the book she was writing, pushed up her sleeves, and set to work on my manuscript. It was my great good luck to have a writer like her in the family, and this book could not have been done without her.
Oh,
it could not be said better than that.
Isn't that nice?
And she She passed away in February
That's
of,
right.
Of this year.
That's right.
But all of that's not the only different thing about this book. Another different thing about it is its, I don't know what you call it, format. It's told through correspondence among the various characters. Where did that come from? I read somewhere where it's very old-fashioned.
It's extremely old-fashioned. I mean, it's from the 18th century, which I think accounts for a lot of people
Your aunt wasn't that old.
No. She was not from the 18th century. But novels told in letters are very old, and I think a lot of people think, ew, that's so formal. Ew, that's not very much fun. But I got to tell you, it's fun.
It really is. In this book, the way it gives you writers a chance to develop characters without any further excuse. There's another author involved with the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Society, and we will meet with her when we come back.
You're listening to Conversations on the Coast with Jim Foster. Now you can find this program on iTunes, SoundCloud, and all your favorite digital outlets. Follow the show on Twitter at Jim Foster COC and email jimfostercoc@gmail.com.
Listen carefully. The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Society is the title. Annie Barrows, the author, is with us. The publisher is Dial Press. And a woman we've had on this show, Elizabeth Gilbert, the author of Eat, Pray, Love, has said this about the book. I can't remember the last time I discovered a novel as smart and delightful as this one, a world so vivid that I kept forgetting this was a work of fiction populated with characters so utterly wonderful that I kept forgetting they weren't my actual friends and neighbors. Treat yourself to this book, please. I can't recommend it highly enough. And I predict what's going to happen, at least in the Bay Area, with this book. This will be the leader in all the stores for Christmas giving. It is an absolutely perfect Christmas gift for anybody who reads, even if they move their lips.
That's a ringing endorsement, too.
Yeah, moving their lips. The other author that I see for this book is a leading character in the book, one Juliet Ashton. A writer with some success, one would say, a failed fire warden during World War II, during the Blitz, who drops suitors left and right. Where does she come from? Do we have somebody in mind here?
Well, I think Juliet's voice is probably the closest to my Aunt Mary Ann's real, actual voice, that sort of wry sense of humor and that charm and that willingness to just be delighted by other people's stories, and most of all, her passionate love for reading and books, and those qualities make her very much like Mary Ann herself.
Now, did your aunt throw teapots? Did she?
I'm going to take the fifth on that one.
No, Juliet is so charming and she's so direct, and she doesn't really fool around or hesitate about anything except her own love life.
Yes, that's right.
So Ashton, the author within the story, asks 3 questions. And I'm going to ask you those questions because it's a way of letting people know as much as you want them to know about the book. Okay? Why, she asks at one point, why did a roast pig dinner have to be kept secret over there on Guernsey?
Well, the roast pig dinner had to be kept a secret because the island of Guernsey was occupied by the Germans during World War II, and all pigs belonged to the Germans. They requisitioned them for their own soldiers. The islanders didn't get to eat their own meat.
And there's a story in here about the Germans actually had a group of soldiers that were responsible for the pig count. Everybody who had pigs had his or her pigs counted. Mm-hmm. And if a pig passed away, that had to be
there's
noted.
A pig death certificate.
Yes. Now, what the islanders did at one point, as one of the characters tells the story, is they passed a dead pig around. Mm-hmm. Getting a pig knocked off their quota of pigs, then they could have a pig dinner.
Mm-hmm. So then they had possession of a live pig that was counted as dead. They could eat it up.
It's all very confusing. And if you like roast pig, it's great. Now, that said, how could a pig cause the beginning of a literary society?
Well, as they were eating their secret pig dinner, they managed to enjoy themselves so much they overstayed curfew. And when they all tried to go home, they got caught. And when they got caught...
Well, they got caught because a guy by the name of Booker, if I recall correctly, having had, I think the phrase is, more to drink than eat, began to sing. Yes,
and that warned the German patrols that they were out after curfew. So they quickly had to invent a reason why they were out after curfew, and Elizabeth McKenna came up with the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society.
And what in the name of heck is a potato peel pie? I mean, these are the author's questions. Don't blame me.
No, I know. They're good questions. They're excellent questions. A potato peel pie is a thoroughly revolting
concept, just to begin with.
But as a concept, it's bad. But I have actually made and eaten a potato peel pie, and it's not just the concept that's revolting. It's the actuality is pretty nasty, too.
The real thing is...
Yeah.
And we do this in Guernsey during the war when the Germans were occupying because there was no flour.
There was very little food at all.
At all. So, golly gee, potato peel pie. You know, there are other wonderful characters in this thing. One of them, do you say Isola? Isola. She's really weird.
Isn't she wacky?
Yeah. I mean, she does lots of nice things while making potions to, help men in their
ardor.
In their ardor, that's right. What a wonderful phrase. There is one character in the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Society you will never forget. Stay tuned and you'll find out why.
You're listening to Conversations on the Coast with Jim Foster. Now you can find this program on iTunes, SoundCloud, and all your favorite digital outlets. Follow the show on Twitter at JimFosterCoc and email jimfostercoc@gmail.com.
This is Jim Foster. It is Conversations on the Coast, and I'll say it one more time lest you forget it. The title today is the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society. It's a novel. It's written by Annie Barrows along with her late aunt, Ann Shaffer, and it's published by Dial Press. The local San Francisco Chronicle Book Review says, in part, traditional without seeming stale and romantic without being naive. It's tempting to throw around terms like gem when reading a book like this, but Guernsey is not precious. It's as charming and timeless as the novels for which its characters profess their love. And that's the interesting thing. Everybody in this society has an ardor for a book, even if they don't like it. They have, a real spirit about it. I mean, the one guy denounced somebody's poetry, but they spent the whole night discussing his denouncing. Yeah,
Chaucer. He didn't like Chaucer one little bit.
Are there any book clubs like that?
Well, I hope there will be after this book.
This is a blueprint.
And I
civilized.
We wanted to goad people into reading the books we liked. That was part of part of our raison d'etre as authors, is to make everybody like what we like.
Oh, goodness gracious. The character who is never there, actually, in the story, and yet is, in my opinion, totally important and utterly unforgettable, is Elizabeth McKenna, of whom another character with whom she spent time in prison, concentration camp with, Remy says of her, it would have been better for her not to have such a heart. What's behind that statement, which I think is totally true.
Yeah, it would have been, but as Juliet replies, it would have been better for Elizabeth not to have had such a heart, because her heart leads her into trouble, terrible trouble.
But time and time again.
Right. She leads with her heart, and it's essential to her very being to do so, but it would have been worse for everybody else, as Juliet points out, if Elizabeth had not had the heart that she did.
And she keeps living that way. and I guess in a way she can't stop herself.
Yeah, she's impetuous.
It's as though she has the virtue, and the virtue propels her forward.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a bit of how she ended. A woman named Binta was the overseer for our evening roll call, and she began to rage at a bleeding girl, rage at her and threaten her with her upraised rod. Then she began to beat the girl. Elizabeth broke out of our line fast, so fast. She grabbed the rod from Binta's hand and turned it upon her, hitting her over and over. Guards came running, and two of them struck Elizabeth to the ground with their rifles. They threw her into a truck and took her again to the punishment bunker. The setting of this is a Nazi concentration camp. So here is this woman, Elizabeth McKenna, who's got to know better, not doing better by herself, but in a sense offering herself up.
Right.
One of the guards told me that on the next morning, soldiers formed a guard around Elizabeth and took her from her cell. Outside the camp walls there was a grove of poplar trees. The branches of the trees formed an allée, and Elizabeth walked down this by herself unaided. She knelt on the ground, and they shot her in the back of the head. And then Remy says, "Thank God, I will stop now. I know that I often felt my friend beside me when I was ill after the camp. I had fevers, and I imagined that Elizabeth and I were sailing to Guernsey in a little boat. We had planned this in Ravensbrück, how we would live together in her cottage with her baby Kit. It helped me to sleep. I hope you will come to feel Elizabeth by your side, as I do. Her strength did not fail her, nor her mind, not ever. She just saw one cruelty too many." She is one heck of a character.
Yeah.
She really, really is. And it's the kind of character that will just stick. At least it will stick with me, and I think it will stick with other people as well. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is there's humor in the book, and I don't want to make it seem too heavy, but the way these Guernseyite, if that's what they are, talk about what they're doing. At first, I did not want to go to any book meetings. Clovis Fossey writes to Juliet, "My farm is a lot of work, and I didn't want to spend my time reading about people who never was, doing things they never did." And that's wonderful. And the thing about that is the diction is to me so right. That if you're a Guernsey guy and you're taking care of the pigs and trying to get some food out of the ground, I think that's the way you would talk.
I hope so. Yeah.
This is the way you should read. You should read this book. It is beautiful. It is touching. It is poignant. I'm afraid it'll make you cry in parts, but it's got stuff in it you'll never want to forget. The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Society, Annie Barrows and Mary Ann Shaffer, they're the authors. This has been Conversations on the Coast, and I'm Jim Foster.
Now you can find this program on iTunes, SoundCloud, and all your favorite digital outlets. Follow the show on Twitter at Jim Foster COC and email jimfostercoc@gmail.com.